So I can remember, hearing stories, seeing pictures, and the time that I could walk, my parents had some type of ball in my hands, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, soccer, even a golf club. Coming from a family who has had such success in sports, it was just destined for me to play. I've had so many great coaches, family members, teammates, personal trainers, physical therapists that have played a massive role in my success. The two most important are obviously my mom and dad. From an early age, they taught me what it was like to be a competitor. You have some failure here and there. What do you need to do differently? What do you need to change about yourself on the field? Maybe even change some stuff off the field that you do. Another big mentor that I have is my Uncle Ben. Ben McDonald, he goes without saying, he is who he is for good reason. And having him as a mentor throughout my career was special to me, because as I look back on it, I can remember thinking whenever I was in high school or even in college, the goals that I set for myself and where I want to take my career, he's been there. We had a great group of guys, baseball and football, and we had playoff runs in football while I was here. We had playoff runs in baseball while I was here, and it's difficult for me to focus on one true memory that I have other than just my teammates and the friendships that I developed while I was here and the relationships that have carried all the way to this point in my life. My senior year, we made it to playoffs. We ended up playing a very good Dutchtown ball club. And it was a 3-game series, man. We went back and forth for 3 games, and ultimately they ended up beating us. But, the next day, me and my senior class, we drove up to the field and we hopped the fence. All the gates were locked, and we just went out there and we sat on the pitcher's mound for hours. And we just talked, we reminisced about all the good times that we had on that field with that group of guys. Senior year of football, we made it to playoffs. We had a good playoff run, and we all thought that it was a good idea to dye our hair jet black. So we dyed our hair jet black, and then we rolled with it all the way through the year, and in the playoffs, and walking around campus with jet black hair. It was clear who was on the football team, let's just say that. My time at Denham Springs High School, as I reflect back on it, my career here might have been a little bit different than most. I wasn't that player that came in freshman year and was on varsity for 4 straight years. I had to earn that, and I had to make some changes within myself and my game on and off the field to get to where I wanted to be. 3 or 4 years later, you fast forward and I'm on varsity, pitching well, and everything started to kind of come together. And then same story for college. You get there as a freshman in college, and you go from being a big fish in a small pond to being a small fish in a big pond. And sitting there as a freshman in college, you're looking at all these upperclassmen, you're saying, man, I want to be there. What do I need to do? Take another step back, reassess what you're doing on the field, what you can improve on. And then I get the opportunity to go play pro ball, and I get drafted, and same story, just a different chapter. We're in spring training as rookies in our first year, and we see the big leaguers on the big league field practicing, pitching, doing what they do, and it's like, man, I want to get there. What do I need to do? Rookie ball is another level. Then you have low A, high A, double A, triple A, and then big leagues. And with each step that you take, goes without saying, competition gets better. We were in big league camp. I got the invite to go to big league camp in 2021 with Baltimore. I did not have a spot on the roster, and I had to earn a spot on the 26-man roster. 40 players get invited to camp. They keep 26 of them and put them in the big leagues. So there were a lot of spots that were open and a lot of people that needed to be cut. And as the days and the weeks progressed in big league camp, they started making some cuts, and they were sending some kids back down to minor league camp, and I was staying. Well, they called me into the office a couple days before camp was going to be over, and our manager, Brandon Hyde up there, he told me that I had made the team and that I was about to, get your bags packed, we're going to Boston. I can remember the first phone call that I made was to my parents, and told them, and just overflowing with emotions on both ends of the phone, because, you know, getting that call and being told those words, you know, pack your bags, we're going to Fenway. That's, you know, that's what every kid wants to hear. It's truly tough to put into words the emotions that you feel, knowing that you've worked your whole life for this and that you have left everything on the field, and to have it all pay off, to have it all come together and be rewarded with something like that, you know, it's super special. I was super proud. And throughout the course of my career, man, there were some times where I truly thought that it just might not happen. You know, whether it was an injury here or a bad year here, and there was definitely some doubts, but throughout all those doubts, you know, I never gave up. And I always tried everything, you know, went to the field every day and got the best that I could be to, you know, continue to work towards that one goal. And my big league debut in Yankee Stadium, you know, that's a lot of emotions. Opening up that bullpen gate, coming into the game, and, you know, you're just looking at Yankee Stadium as you're running, you know, into the field. And, you know, as you're running onto the field, it almost feels like you're floating. You can't feel your legs, and you're running, and, you know, everything just kind of blacks out. First batter I faced was Aaron Judge. You know, it got back to competing and doing what I've been doing my whole life. And I can remember sitting in the dugout after I got out of that inning saying, you know, I just did that. You know, this is, for that moment right there, that's what I worked my whole entire life for. So it is definitely special. Having my number retired here and now being inducted into the Hall of Fame, you know, it's tough to put into words how much it means to me. This is a community that my family has been in for, you know, 100 years. There's been a lot of my family members that have come through this community and come through these walls that have had a lot of success in sports. You know, I have two uncles that are in the Hall of Fame, and with my Uncle Ben McDonald and Uncle Michael, and to follow in their footsteps and, you know, get another person in the family, you know, of this status, it's definitely tough to put into words, but it does mean a lot. Yeah, well, I would like to thank, first and foremost, my mom and dad, my grandparents, all of my family, my wife, who's been with me, you know, since 2013. So me and my wife got together whenever we were in high school, and she was with me every step of the way through my career. So I definitely owe a lot to her as well. All the coaches that I've had throughout my career, all the teammates that I've had, personal trainers, physical therapists, I owe a lot to everybody out there. And there's so many people that have had a helping hand in my success and getting me here today.